with a knife video for you, and today we're going to have the next installment in the Recommend a Knife series. There's been a few of these already. It's been really fun to do these, and I've loved the discussion that we've been having in the comments and over on the Facebook page. So here's what I would ask you guys. If you're watching this, check the comments. You'll find other recommendations there from other guys who said, hey, how come this or that isn't on the list? And so that may give you some further resources to check out, some further knives that you may be interested in that I didn't mention, that didn't make my list for whatever reason. The other thing is I'd love to have your recommendations here on, this list, which is going to be sort of high-end production type stuff, or on any of the other lists. Finally, I really would like to elicit your help with the next two videos coming up. So we're going to do a video on office carry or gentleman's carry. I'm going to combine both of those, and then we're going to do another one on EDC fixed blades. So if you have a big recommendation in either one of those categories, I would love to hear it down below or over on the Facebook page. I will put a link to the Facebook page below so you can go over there and join the conversation. I will also put, like I always do, a full list of all the knives from this video on the Facebook page, as well as a link to DLT Trading where you can go ahead and pick up most of these. Now, I've used DLT because they tend to have, they tend to stock some of the higher end stuff that we're going to be talking about in this video. And so finally, that brings me to the video itself, what we're going to talk about today. And I've got the Para 2 here because it's going to be a really nice example of this, not of this, but a contrast here. So this is a very practical folding knife. It's a little more expensive than maybe a Rat Model 1 or something, but it's definitely a user, it's a carrier, it's a knife that you don't really have to worry that much about. That's really focused on practicality. All right. And I love practicality, and I know you guys do too, but sometimes I don't want to be practical. Okay. So there are things on knives, features like multi-row bearings or, integral handles, or anodized hardware, different design features that really don't do anything practical for the knife, but they just are cool. Okay, Mokutai or Mokame inlays, Damascus blades, all those kinds of things. They're not practical. All right, they don't add any utility to the knife. We just like them. Okay, so these knives that we're going to talk about today will have a lot of those features. So maybe you call it high-end production, maybe you call it collectible or enjoyment knives, or whatever you want to call it. Call it pocket jewelry if you want to. These are going to be recommendations for knives that are a little bit beyond the average practical user that we normally concern ourselves with on the channel. So the first knife that I'm going to show you guys here is one that you have seen many times. This is actually one of my favorite high-end knives. Now, you guys know I have knives that cost quite a bit more than this. I have knives that are more popular and more well-loved by the community than this. But here's what I would say about this knife. This delivers virtually all of the beauty and attention to detail and perfection that we expect to see from just about any high-end folding knife. All right, the action and the detent are fantastic. Everything is easy to everything is easy to manipulate, right? This is a truly well done high-end folding knife, and offers as much as you can get for almost any price point. Okay, this is great. I've had custom knives that don't have an action nearly as nice as this. I've had a Shirogorov, for example. Yes, it's good. The action is fantastic on a nice Shiro, but this is so close that you'd be hard pressed to even notice. It really is. Okay, so that's why this knife is here. And we could add a number of other knives from Reate. So while I've got this guy, I want to show you a couple of other knives as well. Okay. And so let's go ahead and get started. And by the way, I've used a number of different, in addition to this one, let's start working our way through the rest of the list. I have used a number of different websites. There we go. This one, of course, is Blade HQ, and what we're looking at is the Reate Jack, which is a beautiful knife. Absolutely impressive. Everything that you could want from a really high-end folder. It costs a bit of money, but really unique and special. And so this is exactly the kind of knife that we're looking for on this list. Now, there are a number of other knives from Reate we could list. I'm going to just mention one other, and that is the K1 over here. The whole K series I think is pretty cool, but the K1 seems to strike a really nice balance between aesthetics and usability, and I don't know, it just seems like a really perfect option out of the K series. So I wanted to throw this one in as well. So all of these Reate knives, virtually anything they make is going to be exceptional. All right. And you're also, by the way, going to see some knives here that are from a particular designer, but Reate is doing the manufacturing for them. So these are all just great examples, and Reate really, really does knock it out of the park. Okay, what have we got next on the list? After Reate, and again, I mentioned some models specifically. The Torrent, the Jack stand out to me, and the K1 stand out to me. But there are many, many Reates, so check out their lineup and pick the one that you find most enjoyable. Next on the list is going to be the F95. Now, this is not a great example. The one I really like has the micarta inlays, but this is a Shirogorov. And of course, from Shirogorov, you get really, really functional knives, so you don't have to sacrifice the ability to use your knife and cut stuff with your knife, but you gain the most outstanding fit and finish and action and those kinds of things. It's just mind-boggling. It really, really is. Okay, so Shirogorov F95, and I've got another Shiro to recommend here as well. The F3. This is my personal favorite. Well, yeah, the F3 is a favorite of mine. I absolutely love the F3, but the F95 I haven't tried yet, and I really, really want to. So that may, when I finally get my hands on one, that may knock the F3 out of its place in my sort of most loved Shiros list. Guys, again, I know these are really expensive. That's kind of the nature of this list. And so I know not everyone is going to be rushing to spend the kind of money that these cost. By the way, this is a pretty expensive option. You can find F3s for closer to $600, especially on the secondary market. So that would be the place to start looking if you're interested in a Shirogorov. Okay, let's move this guy out of the way. The next knife on the list is one that I actually own. That's always pleasant. This is the Koenig Arius. Now, I have done a whole video just talking about why people love this knife so much and why I love this knife so much. It is amazing. Okay, the action is fantastic, the feel in hand is fantastic, the blade is fantastic. Like, everything about this knife is exactly what I want it to be. All right, now the only thing I will say is I was kind of hoping to get my hands on an Arius that was sans flipper tab, okay, that had a flipper delete on it, but this is just fine and super, super enjoyable. This happens to be a Gen 2 in CTS XHP steel, which is my favorite steel, so that works out really, really well for me. And this is an easy recommend. These are super popular, and there's good reason that they are. They can be a little hard to find in the, what would you say, plain Jane version. And that, I think, guys, is going to be a theme of this video. A lot of these knives that I'm going to talk about, I really, really like sort of the plain version of them. But man, so these guys come in at $525, okay, just a plain titanium Arius. However, if you start at changing blade finishes and adding different features and materials and things like that, the price can climb extremely fast. Okay, so before you know it, you're spending $1,000 on a Koenig Arius, and then at $1,000, this knife does not make my list. Okay, I'm sure it makes a lot of other people's lists, but for me, I'm going to say that's going to be a pass. This one is really, really great, and I can comfortably use and carry this knife and recommend it. And I know, by the way, that everyone's sort of comfort level with price is different. I've already recently had a conversation with some of you about that, but this knife is an absolutely brain, I don't have to have any doubt or even think about it. I can recommend this knife in a heartbeat without any hesitation. Let's head back over to the iPad and look at the next knife that I want to recommend. This is not a knife that I've had myself, but I've researched it enough, and I've kind of made that a rule here. It doesn't have to be a knife that I've owned or own. If it's a knife that just is so well reputed and the design is just nearly perfect, which I really feel like this one fits that, then I'm still going to go ahead and put it on my list. Now, this is going to be a hard one to find. You're going to be looking on the secondary market for these guys, but the Evo Typhoon was a fantastic build. Brian Nadeau has a bunch of great stuff. He really does. And the Evo Typhoon is one of my favorites because it's just toned down a notch or two. All right, Brian, if you're watching this, I love your work, but sometimes I just find it too busy, too much stuff going on. This is just a little simpler than we often see from Brian, and I love it. Okay, and this is built by Reate, so you're going to see quite a bit of that in this video. The other knife I want to talk about while we're on this is, I'm going to try to keep you guys from seeing, let's see here, the Void. This is another new knife. I think if you go on Blade HQ to get this, it says in stock. What you're actually doing is pre-ordering this knife. I was under the impression that pre-orders were gone, but I guess Blade HQ was able to secure some. Now, this knife is a little smaller than I like, but again, I feel absolutely no hesitation in recommending this knife based on the people I've talked to who've actually tried some of the prototypes, and based on the fact that, you know, everything else that Brian has done, I've just absolutely loved. So, a couple of knives there from Brian Nadeau. Anyway, I'm going to have to save till the end for some honorable mentions. This is another knife that, again, I absolutely love. I'm having a hard time fitting the whole thing on the screen. I have to adjust this a little bit. There you go. So this is the Ultramar Redención. This is the 229. They're also the 228. I think they're called Street or something like that. They're a little bit smaller. The 229 is larger, and guys, I have to say, this is one of my favorite knives of 2019. I don't have it anymore, and I kind of miss it, but anyway, I sold it to get something else that I like as much or even more. So no big deal. And the fact is, you just can't keep all the amazing knives that are out there. I've had so many fantastic knives, and it's not realistic, at least for me, to keep them all. But this one is easy to recommend and to put on this list. Absolutely fantastic knife. Let's see, where are we going next? The next knife, I've got to qualify just a little. Okay. What we have here is a Gareth Bull Chamois. Now, notice how this one was $5.95. They are no longer $5.95. And so I actually thought about taking this off the list, but I thought to myself, you know, I like the design enough, and I've handled a couple that I'm really impressed with, that I want to leave it on the list. But here's what I would say about this. There is a bubble around this knife right now, a bad one. I think I saw someone post one for like $2,000, one of the ones that recently sold for $900. Now, there are two things I have to say. First of all, Gareth has upped his price. So these used to be $700 stock, and I think at that price, okay, that was a pretty good recommend. Now, the last time he made some available, they were like $925 or $950 or something like that, and I think that's too much. Now, having said that, I also know that these are selling for stupidly high prices on the secondary market, and do I blame Gareth Bull for a second for saying, wait a second, someone buys my knife for $900 and sells it for $2,000. I want some of that $2,000. Hey, no, I don't blame him at all. And I expect the price to go up even a little bit more on these before it starts coming down. The fact is, though, that they're overpriced. Sorry, guys, there's a bubble. It's the whole Hinderer thing happening all over again. These are just really popular. Everybody wants one. And so while I would recommend this, I would also recommend wait a year or two before you bother even looking for one. Okay, because they're not worth what people are asking right now, not at all. And at $2,000, I could never recommend this knife. At $1,000, I would never recommend this knife. But at, you know, between $500 and $700, I think this is a fantastic knife and easily recommendable. And that's in the fairly stock version, okay? I kind of hope that someone does a production collaboration with this because, you know, if Reate built this, I would be super excited and I would be the first in line to buy one. Or, you know, somebody else, I don't know. There's some other makers out there who do a decent job, but Reate comes to mind as probably one of my favorites. Now, the next knife on the list is sort of in a similar boat. This is, of course, the Holt Specter. Now, when I reviewed a Specter, they were like $500. I think maybe $525. And at $525, again, an amazing, amazing knife. And this my knife was just mind-boggling. It was so good. And it still is so good, but now the base price is $700, which again, sorry, that's a pass for me. Okay. So I know some of you watching have one. Some of you are willing to drop that 700 bucks in a heartbeat. I'm not one of those people, so I'm going to take a hard pass on this knife at the price point. But if it ever comes around at a more moderate price, like at 550, I would be all over this. Okay, so there you go, guys. That's the next knife on my list. Then the next thing I want to touch on is actually a category, and that is of zero tolerance knives. Zero Tolerance has a lot of great knives. A few of them, those without bearings, made my list of hard use knives to recommend. However, I couldn't recommend, a lot of them for hard use because of the fact that they're on bearings. And so some of these fit into this category. And by the way, let me say that compared to some of the knives that we've already looked at that were really, really, really high dollar, guess what? A ZT is going to get you almost there. Okay, they really are, and there are a lot of great zero tolerance models that still, I think, fall comfortably into this sort of collectible, high-end type of category. Okay, and look, right here on this page, and I'm going to scroll down and show you a few more as we work our way along. The 0462, absolutely. The 0470, absolutely. The 04562 tie, absolutely. I already recommended the 393, I think, in everyday carry knives, but I'll recommend it again here. The 0055, again, collectible, yes. Fun, yes. The 0920, again, totally easy to recommend. The 0804, again, guys, there's tons and tons of great ZT knives that would fall into this category of, high-end production, collectible, sort of special knives that are almost, that pocket jewelry type stuff. All right. I'm going to miss some on this list without a doubt. So go ahead and fill in the bottom other knives that you think easily belong here. Right, let's move this guy out of the way. I've got another brand slash couple of models to bring in. Now, these are both WE knives. WE is absolutely a great high-end production company. I want to give an honorable mention to the WE Knives Mass-Drop collaborations, and specifically the Mass-Drop Keen is fantastic. Now, it's not as highly priced as some of the knives that have been on this list, but it is a wonderful, wonderful knife. And of all the various offerings that have come out between WE Knives and Mass-Drop, I feel the most comfortable recommending the Keen. It truly is something special. Now, in addition to that, there's some other WE builds, the Boost Blade Smoke that is easy to recommend, and a number of others. These are specific models from WE, and these happen to be my favorites, okay? I absolutely enjoy both of these. I find the designs a little more attractive. They're a little more toned down. WE knives I find often get too busy and they try to do too much, where these are fairly simple and they're just trying to be good knives, and they really, really are. Okay, so this, of course, is the WE Knives Malice. This is the WE Knives 037. I think this is model 911, and this is model 910 or 901, 910. Let's go with 910. I could be wrong. Someone can correct me down in the comments. But both of these are WE knives that I can easily recommend. And again, these are giving you just exceptional high levels of quality that are really comparable to something like this that costs a whole lot more. Okay. So those are easy to recommend. I want to leave these on the screen for, actually, I'll put one more knife in and then give you my honorable mentions, because there are a few honorable mentions that I want to make here. But before we get away from this, when we're talking about high-end production knives, I know this knife has come in to play in a number of these videos, but I still think anything from Chris Reeve qualifies as high-end production. It qualifies as highly collectible and highly desirable, even as a grail for a lot of guys. And so I think this fits nicely into this video. This happens to be the Nkosi, but we could have a 21 here. We could have a large or small. We could have the 31 that isn't out yet. We could have the Menandi or the Tylock or something like that. All of those definitely fit in this video pretty comfortably. And so let's leave this guy on the screen for a couple of minutes while I give you some recommendations. The Liang Ma knives are wonderful. Liang Ma is a great designer. They're built by Reate, and there are so many that I really, really like. Okay, the latest giant mouse knife goes on this list. The others, they used to be built in Italy, and they really did struggle to do a really good job. Now that they've switched to Reate, I think it'll be just all roses all the time, because Reate is pretty well the best production knife company at this point, in terms of just what they're delivering for quality and all of that. And that's why so many guys are working with them. Um, any other honorable mentions that I'm missing? I'm probably forgetting some. I only wrote a couple down, but there were a couple that I thought of as I was talking here that I wanted to bring up, and now I'm not. But those are the main honorable mentions that I wanted to give you. Let's see here. Last thing to say is I've got a link to DLT Trading. Use that link. I think it made sense to go with this video because they tend to carry a little more of the higher end stuff like this. Again, make your recommendations down below. I'd love to hear them. And don't forget to add some recommendations for the upcoming videos, one on gentlemen's knives or office carry knives, and one on EDC fixed blades. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.